Criticism levelled at schools watchdog Ofsted as a coroner says an inspection contributed to the suicide of Berkshire headteacher Ruth Perry.
Ofsted likes to judge people with single-word labels. We could judge the current Ofsted system with our own labels: callous, perverse, inhumane.
Ofsted has tonight said it will work to address concerns about its inspections. Hello and a very good evening to you. I'm Jo Kent. I'm amazed there are not more heads killing themselves. The words of Reading headteacher Ruth Perry as she sought help for her deteriorating mental health 4 days after a school inspection downgrading her school to inadequate. 2 months later, she was to take her own life. Today, a coroner ruled that Ruth's death was suicide, contributed to by that Ofsted inspection. She said Ruth's distress would have been obvious during the inspection. The coroner warned Ofsted about only paying lip service to learning from tragedies like this. We start tonight's extended coverage of this story outside Ruth's school, Caversham Primary, where we can join our reporter Jo Campbell. And Jo, the coroner really didn't pull any punches, did she?
The coroner was quite determined, shall we say, in the views that she expressed at the court today. She said that when inspectors had arrived here at Caversham Primary last November, their inspection had lacked fairness, respect and sensitivity. Now, those words are all significant because they come from Ofsted's own code of conduct. At times, she said they were rude and intimidating. And she said that, perhaps in the most damning suggestion of what she was going to say here tonight, that effectively that kind of attitude very often reflected the overall culture of an organisation. Now, the coroner has made quite plain that she feels that there does need to be change at Ofsted. But Ruth Perry's family this afternoon said that in actual fact they doubt whether Ofsted, under its current organisation, has the ability to make the changes that the coroner feels are required.
We have no confidence that Ofsted, under its current leadership and management, is either willing or able to make the widespread root and branch reforms to its systems and culture that are so urgently needed.
Now, the coroner has said that it's up to Parliament to decide the future shape of Ofsted inspections. And of course, there is a select committee, the Education Select Committee, that is just currently carrying out a study at the moment. She said one of the things they must do is balance what Ofsted says is the essential view of actually having very simple one-word judgments, like the judgment passed here at Caversham Primary, which are vital, they say, to help parents understand whether a school is suitable for their child. That, she said, had to be balanced against the very obvious harm that such judgments could cause to the mental well-being of senior leaders and head teachers like Ruth Perry.
She would always stop and talk to people. She always knew people wherever we went. Because she'd raised their children, she'd helped support them and their families with their children's growth.
She lived and breathed that school.
She was fun. She was very determined, a real advocate for her school and an advocate for children.
It was just such a pleasure to know her, see her excitement when she was pregnant with her girls. Her work meant a lot to her, but her family were the most important thing to her.
Ruth Perry had been head teacher at Caversham Primary School for 13 years when Ofsted carried out their inspection in November last year.
She came to see me the day after the inspection and it wasn't Ruth who walked through the door.
She explained to me that she wasn't sleeping, that she'd been to the doctors. I think she was just worried about everything because her future had been taken away from her. And Christmas was just very, very dark and very sad.
Part of the problem was the ban on sharing details about the visit. But a text message to former colleague Zeynep Stromfeld made its impact clear.
She was saying the result was not good and I am broken. I am not sleeping and I'm struggling to do things. First time in 17 years, I dread going into school. Isn't that sad?
She thought she was going to lose her job. And she's the main breadwinner in the family. So for her, it was that their plans and their future wasn't, it was so uncertain. And the last thing I said to her was I gave her a cuddle and a hug, and I said, this is what family do. We love you. We're here for you. And I can't believe, I can't understand why she did what she did the next day. But I can tell you the day that it changed was the inspection day. The day her life changed irrevocably was inspection day.
The next day, Ruth Perry took her own life. News spread quickly, and Zeynep Stromfeld got a message from her former boss.
She wrote, she died. I was like, no, she's probably mistaken. So I called her. And that's when she told me.
And what did you think?
I said Ofsted killed her.
Coming up on tonight's South Today.
Ruth's family agreed and went public on the day the Ofsted judgment was published.
Ruth Perry's family say they've been...
The wider school family was feeling the impact too. All Edmund Barnett Ward's children are either past or present pupils at Caversham Primary.
I've had some very difficult conversations with my daughter. She asked, we were eating together, and she just said, are all my teachers going to die now? This has obviously been weighing on her mind.
She was the best teacher we ever had in the whole entire school. I don't think she doesn't earn this.
A march was held in Ruth Perry's memory. Zeynep Stromfeld delivered a eulogy as hundreds gathered for a memorial a few weeks later.
Ruth, honest and humble, with a great sense of humour. Ruth, my beautiful friend, inside and out, till we meet again, farewell. Oops, sorry, that got me emotional.
For some, this had become education's Me Too moment. Ruth Perry's death, a cue for them to speak out.
We're due an Ofsted coming up soon, and I do live in fear because I've seen what has happened. I live in fear of being labelled, because to be labelled for all your hard work and all your good intentions with one word, if it's not anything better than good, it does destroy you.
And Julia Waters' campaign was to take her to the office of the Education Secretary.
Gillian Keegan said in the very first meeting that something's gone wrong. I want to put it right, she said. So whilst Ofsted themselves have been absolutely tone deaf and intransigent and refusing to budge of their own accord, I've been heartened by the Secretary of State's attitude. I think she's genuinely keen to see changes.
When Ofsted returned to Caversham Primary in the summer, they upped its rating to good. Staff there and at other schools say they also noticed a change in the way inspectors go about the job.
Ofsted have now started to do briefings regularly. We didn't have that in the way we're having it now. There's lots of changes. It's just incredibly sad that it took Ruth's death to get to this place. The little comfort will be that there is change from Ofsted, and actually that they publicly say that they've changed, publicly to stand there and say, yes, we accept the Ruth reforms. Yes, we have changed in the name of Ruth.
It's more that there is actually an official acknowledgement that this isn't just part of a standard review of Ofsted systems or whatever, but these changes are being brought in because what happened to Ruth should never, ever be allowed to happen again.
Now, the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, has tonight acknowledged that what happened here spread far beyond Caversham, spread far beyond Reading, in fact, the entire education community. Ofsted has turned down all requests for interviews, but Amanda Spielman, the Chief Inspector, in a statement tonight said that she now felt sorry for the distress which Ruth Perry had so obviously felt as a result of the inspection here. She said the organisation has begun to change, and as part of that they're going to delay all inspections by 1 day next week so they can bring lead inspectors in to talk to them about the anxiety so many teachers feel when Ofsted calls to say it's coming.
Joe in Reading, thank you very much. Well, there have been school inspectors since Victorian times, but after the introduction of the national curriculum, which told teachers what to teach and set out expected standards, there were concerns the inspection system across the country was too variable. So in 1992, the Office for Standards in Education, Children's Services and Skills, or Ofsted, was born. Back then, schools got 2 months' notice and inspections lasted for a week. Now they'll get a phone call the day before the start of a 2-day visit. Something else that's changed is how regularly inspections take place. In 2011, the then Education Secretary, Michael Gove, wanted the focus to be on poorer performing schools. By the time that policy was scrapped 2 years ago, 300 outstanding schools like Caversham Primary hadn't been inspected for a decade. Inspection reports typically run to about 8 pages, and there's a simple headline rating for the school: outstanding, good, requires improvement, or, as in Caversham Primary's case, inadequate. But Ofsted's job ends with the inspection report. It's then up to others, the school, the local education authority or academy trust, to bring in changes where inspectors say they could do better. Well, Ruth Perry's death prompted a national debate about the way inspections are carried out and the use of single-word judgments in the written reports. Let's get more now. Our political editor, Peter Henley, joins me in the studio. Peter, Ofsted has really been in the political spotlight since this happened, hasn't it?
A huge loss of confidence, a dam burst as a result of Ruth Perry's death. After Ruth Perry's family went to see Gillian Keegan, the Secretary of State, they appointed a new chief inspector, but that doesn't seem to have been enough. There was a report from the National Education Union that said the whole idea of Ofsted was toxic. And today, the National Association of School Leaders said Ofsted and government have refused to take seriously the lessons that need to be learned from this case, to listen properly to our warnings. Joe mentioned Parliament, the Education Select Committee taking evidence from experts. Now, there's a Hampshire MP on that committee who herself, Flick Drummond, was a school inspector.
I think from a taxpayer's point of view, schools have to be accountable. We have to know how they're doing, but the system needs to change. And when I used to do it, we were there for 2 or 3 days. You got a really good measure of the school. Now it's often, particularly in the small rural schools, it's a 1-day snapshot. That's not enough for teachers and head teachers to really prove what their school is like.
So, Peter, when will the Education Select Committee make its report?
It's complete, but I'm told it won't be published until the new year. But one thing that's been added to their agenda today is the fact that Ruth Perry had to crowdfund the family for her representation at the inquest, whereas the council's Ofsted had public funds. So Ruth Perry's tragic death really has made a lot of people think about how the system does and doesn't work.
Peter, thank you very much. And there are a whole series of articles about this story online. You can go to bbc.co.uk/Berkshire, and that's also available on the BBC News app.